in funding women. All our panelists here have very rich experience. They're all active, and I had a very brief conversation with them coming into this panel. All of them very actively involved in mentorship, in interventionist approaches, in promotion, in social change, etc. So let me stop there and request each of our panelists, and the way we'll structure this, we'll do it in two broad themes. First, for the overall just general participation in the workforce, and then we'll come in the second half to leadership and entrepreneurship, to give their maybe a minute or two to talk about your broad ideas, your experiences, and what you would like to see as a way going forward. We'll try to keep this interactive, intersperse it with some questions amongst ourselves, and at the end, of course, open it up for the audience for question and answers. So who would like to go first? Puthiya, would you like to go first? I mean, I just made eye contact with you, so I thought, why not ask her to go first? Go ahead.
So the first question you're asking, Mallika, is around what corporates can do?
Anything, whatever. Your broad views on labor force participation. We do lag behind, so
yeah.
Why? What can be done? Anything corporates can do? Just broad ideas.
So it's interesting because I moved to India about 15 years ago, and 15 years ago we were having the same conversation, and the workforce participation for women was about 23-24%. So as Mallika was saying, we've moved up, but we're still far behind the rest of the world. And in my mind, there are three sort of broad buckets in which the issue sort of kind of finds itself, right? One is the one we can't ignore at all, which is society and the personal environment that women are in. And I find, if I look across the parts of the world that I've worked in, I've lived in 9 countries, the level to which stakeholders in an Indian woman's life can have an opinion on what an Indian woman does is more than almost any other society I've ever seen. And that is a huge factor. If you can imagine, I mean, you think about, that is bureaucracy in a person's life, right? Like, if you have to make sure that everyone from your in-laws to your parents to your neighbors to your spouse to your children are okay with the choices that you make in your professional life, it's a huge thing. So one, I think we need to think about the way in which we help women deal with this level of stakeholder management, right? I'll talk a little bit later about an example that I talk about from earlier days in another company of what we did in terms of bringing the mother-in-law in and actually sort of, and in fact, I'll give the example right now. We were looking at women engineers and finding that they were having a hard time staying in the workforce. And when we started talking to them about why they were leaving when they were getting married, still when you have a child, you have a reason, right? You have to look after a child. But when you get married, unless your spouse is also sitting at home all day, why do you leave the workforce, right? And when we were looking into it, we were finding that people were saying, look, the men I work with, when they're at work, if they're late and they come home late, nobody gets upset with them. If I get home late, then I have a house of people who are fairly upset. And most upset is my mother-in-law because she has taken over the work that I was going to do in the home, right? Was serve dinner, whatever else is going on. And so a few of the younger women came up with this really good idea where we created a mother-in-law day, where we invited mothers-in-law in specifically into our R&D centers to see what their daughters-in-law did, right? And this was at GE, and so we showed them that they actually helped reduce infant mortality rates, maternal mortality rates. So the idea of you are freeing up another woman, and by doing that, you are adding to society, right? And the impact was huge. And so, I tell this story where this young woman came into my office a few days later and said, this is amazing. I got home late from work the other day, and I was expecting a tense household. And my mother-in-law turned to my husband and said, get up and make her a cup of tea. You just work in a bank. She's saving lives. So, we can convert we have to think about how to manage stakeholders, right? I'll talk about just one more aspect, and then I'll let other people talk. Then the other thing is in the workplace, right? And in the workplace, I think we have to be unabashed in recognizing the talent that exists with women. There is still this view, whether you're a woman leader or a male leader, that you cannot, that you somehow have bias if you allow a woman to move forward or you encourage ambition. And the truth is, we have as many women graduating from our engineering schools and our medical colleges and all our universities. So there isn't an intellect problem. There is actually just the lack of opportunity, and there's the lack of sort of confidence that we're giving women to have that level of ambition. So my view is that, and I see it with the women on this panel, that we need to be unabashed about helping to make women successful and then identifying the problems within the workspace, right? And I'll give one quick anecdote there. Whenever I have started in a new organization, I do roundtables with women across all levels to just understand what their experiences are. And one of the stories I heard was from a new mother who said, I don't know how I can ever win, because if I leave work at 7 or 8 p.m. to get home to my child, I'm accused by my colleagues of, behind my back, the conversation is, she gets to go home early.